Okay. Hey, everybody, thank you very much for coming out. My name is Colin Lennox. I've presented a couple times to the Seasteading Institute, but I'm very honored today to be able to introduce some very neat people I met through the Mars Society last year, and we all kind of just organically started working together. And we're a very diverse set of subject matter experts that have pooled ourselves in, under the title then of Arcology X. Stuart is the gentleman. He'll be speaking in a little bit. He started everything up, and he's got a team in Livingston, Montana, building structural components for arcologies. And from there, then we have an opportunity to begin to hang all of the other, so to speak, all the other components of what a fully self-sustaining arcology, whether it be on land, sea, or in space, all those components together. And then that is our, not only the research, but the production, fabrication, and getting it out there to people. Because my God,
Oh,
save yourselves. That's kind of one of the, if we had a motto, it'd be something little like that. Um, so instead of introducing everybody right now, we'll go ahead and just do that as we go through the presentation, just to move things along. So once again, hi, I'm Colin. I'm the Wetland guy. If you want to, you can look at some of my two former presentations for the Seasteading Institute. So I'll just go through a couple slides here. And wetland cycling. What does a wetland do? In this case, for an arcology, the wetland is essentially the guts and maybe not so much the lungs, but there are certainly atmospheric components that go into the cycling of waste produced by everything that's alive in an arcology. I'm here in Pennsylvania. My primary work is in acidified mine drainage reclamation and building bioreactors for really finding all sorts of applications. Anything that life is in, there is some tangential or direct application towards what I do. But essentially, I'm building big wetlands in a box. Pete Abrams there, he knows. We've been talking for a while. Frank, next slide, please. Okay, trophism. Just real basic here. Frank Sen handles the primary productivity. That is the growing plants with sunlight. I don't want to get too deep into this, but there are multiple levels, and just keep in the back of your head that it's not efficient. There's only about a 10% transfer rate of energy and or matter from trophic level to trophic level to trophic level. So the plants are primary productivity, and they get X, amount of energy, and then whatever eats that plant next level down, say a cow, although we shouldn't really have as many cows as we have, but they're only get a 10% energy transfer. So when we eat the cow, it's only, once again, 10%. It's an exponential drop off. So eating higher on the trophic scale, closer towards primary productivity, is more efficient. And when you're out in the ocean and you got lots of sunlight, and you can harvest the kelp and whatnot from your locale, whatever your gardens are, you get a lot more bang for your buck. So it's just to keep in mind that the things that you're going to eat are going to be on a self-sustaining arcology seastead, are going to be closer towards the towards the top. Yeah, cool. Next slide. And then what is a wetland? This is my definition. Holds water constantly, water flows through it, so it isn't just like a bucket that sits there, right? It captures and breaks down living matter. That's the decomposition, and that is natural cycling, just real basic. There's a high surface area to volume, and a high biomass that self-organizes. So this picture is taken down in South Carolina, which is and it was probably the most beautiful wedding I've ever been to. As a friend of a friend, essentially, and I got the invite down there. And I just like to show, you've got an incredible amount of surface area, and you can see different stages and different ecologies going on. There on the left is where the houses are. This place is pretty bougie. It was nice. But just, to give an idea, is like, this is a wetland. Next slide, though, please. But what else is a wetland? Tide pools. Technically, holds water that flows through, that provides decomposition, high surface area, decomposition, and it's self-organizing. This picture was taken, and I apologize, it's a little washed out. It was a cloudy day, but I was backpacking on it was the Pacific Coast Trail in Washington, where you actually had to watch the tide pools time, or the tide timing, so that you could actually get through. Is technically backpacking. It's adds another component, but beautiful, just so gorgeous up there. If you get a chance, it's hard to get to, but my God, please go. Next. Salt marshes. Okay, so here's another, and that's one thing to think about. Then this slide is in there because you've got your fresh water on an arcology, and you've got salt water, and you always have to remember that it is easier to get the water out of the salt than it is to get the salt out of the water. Okay, so if you have a freshwater or even brackish source of water, you want to do everything you can to keep that as clean from salt as possible. So you want to start thinking about, okay, my bioreactors that are recycling waste, they're technically fresh water. Even though we can't drink that water, we can't use it directly, you still want to be able to do everything you can to keep the salt out of that water. While you're out in the middle of the ocean and maybe floating in some kind of a gyre and hasn't rained, or you're in one of the doldrums, or like in the horse latitudes, and it hasn't rained for a long time. The preservation of fresh water is as important in the middle of the ocean as it is in a desert, because all the water of the world and not a drop to drink. So just something to keep in mind, the differences between fresh water and advantages too, though, because you got all this sea kelp that you could then pull in, and that is heavy in carbon, and can be broken down in its own ways and washed. And the vesicles inside that have less saline. It isn't as salty, so it's a good way to start with. Well, it hasn't rained for a while, but we could at least pull this stuff up, and hey, look at that water at least isn't at 36,000 parts per milligram of salt per liter, so to speak. Yeah, go ahead, Frank. Next one, please. Oh, another thing, that say mangroves do, wave attenuation. Now, this is a picture of ocean builders, their sea pod. This is the Cadillac. This thing is slick. And if you haven't keyed in on these guys yet, they are arguably the farthest ahead. And their prices are surprisingly, you'd think that thing would be really pricey. It's not cheap, but it's designed to be accessible to all sorts of folks. And they are arguably the farthest ahead, the ocean builders. I was working with them for a little while, and maybe in the future, but their products are excellent. And they just came out with a new video just the other day. So they're taking orders. If you guys are interested, check them out. Like I said, a little pricey, but they've really solved most of the problems, but they're still tethered, so to speak, to land. They're not ready to go ahead and take that final jump of being fully self-sustaining. So you're still going to have to resupply those, but they're going to do most of it. That unit right there is designed for bays, but they are building units that are a little bit more like the flip ships that'll stand up and down and go deep ocean. So they've got a lot of things taken care of. It's a really good organization. Yeah, go ahead and kick over to the next one, Frank. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was me. That's all I had. Let's see, who do we have up next? Oh, great. Okay, so Stuart, he is the founder of ArcologyX, and so if I'm the guts, he's the bones. Stuart, take it away. You there, Stu?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
There you go. Oh, hey, no worries, brother. Yeah, show is yours, sir.
Yeah, so my background is design engineering and systems engineering. So I worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years doing all sorts of interesting high-tech things. And so, yeah, now I'm building the shells of arcologies, right? This is just the outer bit. I mean, it's an important part to get started, to get some visibility, but it's not the most important part of an arcology. Okay, next slide. Frank?
Oh, there we go. I was outside the window.
Okay, so there we go. So yeah, I'm in Livingston. So me and you can see the people there. I have a local team here. So we're actually focused on building the stuff now. And then these are the other people. Some of them are on the call here that we're working with. So you can see our objectives down there. We want to we want to design and deploy accessibly engineered solutions for components, right? So that's what we're all doing, different components of the arcology here. And then we're also working to figure out what are the next things that we need to, the other things that need to be in there, because there's a lot that has to go into an arcology. And then we're expanding the team. It's been expanding. And then, but like I said, we're focused on actually building them now. This is not just an academic exercise. No, we're actually building. And then eventually we want to develop very large scale arcologies that you could seal up. So you have a closed ecosystem inside. And so that's extremely difficult. But it fits in with the last goal, which is eventually we'd want, we were looking at putting these on Mars. And so for there, you have to have a sealed, closed, self-sustaining ecosystem. And so because it's so hard, then of course you need to get a lot of experience with it and do it on Earth before you go to Mars. And so in terms of the seasteading, it's like, yes, same kind of deal. You want to have a closed system. And I would argue the same thing. You want to do a lot of the checkout on land in a more friendly environment than in the ocean. So next slide. So the building design that I'm working on is based on cuboctahedral geometry, because on the top left there, you can see that's a cuboctahedron, and then I've added a floor in it because we're going to use this as the basis of a building. So think of that middle section there as a room. Each of the edges is 10.5 feet. So with the cuboctahedron, the advantage is that all of the edges, of course, are the same length, but also in the bottom left, you can see there from the center to all of the vertices of the cuboctahedron is that same length. And so you have only a single length of structural element to work with. And so that simplifies the manufacturing, it simplifies the design, it simplifies the construction, and it also makes it possible to, the cuboctahedral geometry will fill space. So you can see that middle picture there is just expanding it out, making a larger cuboctahedron out of smaller ones. And then you don't, in the shapes on the right are basic shapes other kinds of shapes that you could build for living spaces. I like the idea of having a living space around a central open area that's a common area, but there can be other designs. Next slide. So this is a concept showing a large building. So the bottom picture there, that's actually just a whole bunch of cuboctahedra all put together. So it's that same geometry, just expanded into a building. This is a concept for a Martian building for 300 people. And it's a lot of area, because on Mars, you have everything you're going to be living inside. So you have to have everything inside the building, all the industrial space, all the recreational space, all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to show you this just to give you the concept that there's, we're thinking about very large buildings. Okay, next slide. This is the one that we're starting off with, that we're building the components for right now. It could be like an accessory dwelling unit. It could be a studio. And the picture on the right is the closest picture that we have to what it's actually going to look like. So it has, a downstairs. The part of the downstairs, our vision is that it would be an open area for growing things. So you would be living, you're living next to a garden. And then the top floor is like a sleeping loft or whatever you want to use it for. But so this is the basic, this is a relatively simple building that we're going to build to test out the technology with. Another thing I should mention is that all of the design is for this building is designed to be, you can take it apart and reuse the parts. So nothing is nailed or anything. Everything it's cabled together. So those struts are bamboo. Inside the bamboo is a cable that runs through them, and the cable ties everything together. So if you just loosen the cable and remove the cable terminators, you can take the building down, you can reassemble it somewhere else. Or the other thing is, if you take the outer shell off, you can make your building larger. You can just add more to it. So it's a very, the geometry allows you to have a very flexible building, right? Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the technology that we're using. So I mentioned the concrete parts. On the top one is a cable terminator. So it's kind of like it's a capstan. So there's the top left is a 3D model of the picture. The next picture there is the path that the cable takes through the inside of the concrete. And so it follows a spiral path, and then the cable wraps around the outside, and then it re-enters at the bottom and follows another spiral path and then exits at the top. And so the benefit of this design, number one, it's super cheap because concrete is costs next to nothing. And then and the other benefit is that it doesn't damage the cable anyway. It's like if you're using cable, like you crimp it or something, then you can't reuse it. This cable, you can just undo things and loosen it up and reuse the same cable for another building or another purpose. And so the way we manufactured these is we made we've 3D printed models, and we 3D printed the molds for the concrete parts, and that third picture there is the mold. And then basically just put tubes in the mold and then poured the concrete in, and then we manufactured the parts. And then the bottom one is the node. So that's the node that goes at all the vertices. So it has all the landing points for the struts. Our concept is to make the struts out of bamboo. And then the second picture on the bottom shows you the paths of the cable. And then, and again, the mold for the node. And so then you can see one of the guys who's working with me, one of the local guys here, he's got, that's what the actual physical node looks like for the building. So the bamboo will be about 4.5 inches in diameter for the building. Okay, next slide. And so so I should mention for the concrete parts, we've manufactured all of them for the first building. So we're ready to go. All the prototype parts are done. And so the next thing we're working on are the floor sections. These are, this is another invention of mine, which is I call it the rib truss. And it's a way to make a very lightweight truss structure. So you can see it hanging there on the left. It's basically three sets of 1/4 inch plywood in there. We cut them out on a CNC router, and then they fit together and they glue, and they're very lightweight. That picture we took when we were weighing it, because Colin asked, how much does this weigh? So we weighed it, it's 66 pounds. And so that's the basic structural element for the floor. And the middle picture shows that's the fixture for gluing the parallelepipeds together. And then on the right is that's a partial floor section. The basic dimensions, like I mentioned, are 10.5 feet in the building. So that floor is supported on only the corners on a 10.5 foot triangle. And so we're in the process of testing it now. We just completed the first test where we loaded it up with 1,821 pounds to validate the design. And then we're analyzing the data and seeing how it, seeing if there are any design tweaks we want to make before we manufacture the rest of the floor sections. Okay, next slide. And I guess that's it. So that's where we are. So like I said, we're focused on building now. So we're bound and determined to get the first building up this summer. So we'll be building it locally. The next detailed design part that still needs to get done is for the outer shell. And so that's what I'm working on now, is doing those designs. All the designs done in OpenSCAD, and so I write all the models in Python, and then it outputs OpenSCAD code. So that's it.
So this is my part. Hi, I'm Frank. I studied industrial design and metal fabrication. I also do 3D printing as a hobby. I've done it for over 10 years. So I've had the chance to see the whole field grow. And oh yeah, I'm gonna switch to my slides. Sorry about that.
You can switch over these. Yeah, skip.
Yeah. Basically, I designed a system for modular agriculture in order to make the best use of available 3D printers at the moment, because there's a lot of machines available currently with the development of the Ender 3 and further iterations. People have seen a massive wave of early adoption around like 5 or 6 years ago of those machines, but the community still lacks the files in order to create something that is valuable enough to justify the use of plastic for printing the part in most cases. I mean, we're talking about engineering applications for on-demand custom-made parts for 3D printing to be worthwhile. Outside of that use case, it's pretty hard for the layman and the everyday person to find use for those machines, which I found really sad personally, because it has so much potential. But as an art form, if you don't have technological restrictions as you're working with, it's harder to find inspiration, because most of the time you're going to be working around the limitations of your medium in order to create something that is worthwhile. So doing so, I intended to create something that would allow people to see the intrinsic appeal of 3D printers and how they could be leveraged to create better quality of life for everyone. So I got this little definition here on my slide. Intrinsic for intrinsic value from 3D printed assets, as in assets that belong in the natural domain and are essential to, if not contextualized otherwise, life. The most unique thing that we have on Earth, and hope to export elsewhere if we get the fortune to see these days. So I'm going to do a quick breakdown of the geometry before getting more into the details and pictures of what these systems physically look like once printed. So basically, oh yeah, just a quick parenthesis on the name. SnegTex is basically like snake technology, because everything you're printing is basically laying down a long plastic snake in a very specific pattern for it to constitute the shape that you're looking for. So, and since these are valuable intrinsically, they could be leveraged for economic gain also, which is why I put some dollar signs in the in the name of the asset portfolio, so to speak. So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to read the next couple of lines. So basically, it's a high-density agriculture system. The modules can be made with any FDM 3D printers, and they are to be later filled with substrate or soil for gardening. You use zip ties for assembly. So these are 100% plastic, which is incredibly useful if we are to implement it in contexts where metals are hard to get to find and process. Since these are modular, they can be made for making growing beds of infinite size. Since basically you could just stack them on together like Stewart's system for filling specific like needs in terms of footprint or scale or any adaptation to existing setups. There's two families of modules. The first one is derived of the truncated octahedron. These solids are the closest to the sphere and can tessellate space, 3D space fully. And the second one is derived of a newly discovered geometry in the epithelial lining of cell walls, basically. You have prisms. I mean, it's in the family of prisms, but basically you have a hexagonal shape at the top, pentagonal at the bottom, and you got this splitting lattice in the middle that makes it into the shape that I've later derived in order to exploit its capacities. I want to specify that all of these shapes are essentially with parallel planes to the cube octahedron. So my system and Stewart's are intercompatible with ease, and we've already developed connectors for them to be affixed directly onto the cement nodes. These are to be 3D printed with PLA plastic. PLA offers many advantages. It's biodegradable, easily extracted from bioreactors too, from what I gather. We'll be able to expand upon this further. But essentially, yes, it's a very neat system that interfaces seamlessly with other existing structures. So here's what it looks like with all the features involved. These were made with SolidWorks. Some of these assets have over 2,700 features, so they're extremely complex, and it kind of really allows you to maximize the use of 3D printers, because those machines allow for incredibly complex parts without any further costs associated with development. And yeah, so the blue connector and the blue systems in the top picture are the geohedrons derived of the spheres. Sorry, truncated the octahedrons. And the yellow, green, and red ones are the scutoids. It's a family of 3 different shapes. So you got male one, female one, and child one. And they tessellate surfaces, thickened surfaces infinitely without gaps. These also have a special connector that allows you to fix every module with anything twice or half its own size, so they can scale infinitely, which is really helpful for making very, very expensive structures, as you can imagine. There's also accessories you can affix to the surfaces so that you can make the best use of every assembly. Now, when it comes to printing, I haven't experimented a lot with the different geometries. I've mostly done 2 types of styles, columnar and freeform. Basically, these would theoretically allow for high-density agriculture, but I still have to make the test with the various cultivars that we need to bring it with ourselves for either seasteading or journeys further beyond. These are also great for air quality improvement for small apartments, as this project was initially designed for. Oh yes, something I wanted to specify. In the application of seasteading, I think something people should explore is leveraging the plastic from the oceanic garbage patch, and consider if these materials could be recycled through blow molding or rotomolding for making modules for floating islands, which can be later complemented with geoponic configurations for the various cultivars. Also have other assets in the inventory. The geohedron and scutohedrons are great for containing soil, but I've also thought about other means of maximizing existing resources in the intention of generating biomass in the least expensive way possible. So I've developed this box that contains a series of microsiphons that allow for water to seep underneath the box slowly over a long period of time. allowing for potted plants to stay alive for much longer than without the object. And if you were to use it in soil, it would probably allow the tap roots to reach groundwater and mitigate the need for irrigation. But much testing still needs to be done for these systems. It's also compatible with the geohedron array, so this way you could water the columns or whichever setup that you decide to implement the asset inventory into. So that's pretty much my closing slide. I think this system and 3D printers in general show a terrific potential for a carbon-based economy, just as long as we can make material that is useful with those machines. This could be done inland, at sea, and beyond. So I will pass now the slides to Briar, who will talk to you about the Gaia OS system for tying this whole thing together.
Hello, I'm Briar, and yeah, I'm building the Gaia OS. My specialty is in symbolic neural networks, and the Gaia OS is meant to operate as the autonomic neuroendocrine system. So like all your subsystems, it'll keep them from going out of balance. So your greenhouses, your bioreactors, your humidity, temperature, it tries to keep all those within what you said is goal parameters. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, our goal with ArcologyX is the space domes, but obviously that applies to seasteading because closed loop and all that. And so Gaia OS, on the right there is the structure of the program. On the left is an output of the first couple paragraphs of the Bill of Rights read into a neural network. Everything will be fully transparent, including the networks. You can see everything is all, my part is public domain. The neural net engine, everything, C++, it's all out there. When I get done, it'll be available. And yeah, next slide, please. And the only part you have to worry about, though, as a user, is your system and the input, control panel, and output, because it's designed to be a black box system. So you have your sensors, your motor controllers, or your actuators. You tie all them into Gaia. You either give it the goal parameters, and you give it the goal parameters you want, and it'll seek them out. And like any machine learning system, though, it's the training data that depends on, the better data you have to train on, the better it'll do. And next slide, please. And oh, mine's cut off on the bottom here. There we go. All right. And so the whole point of Gaia is self-sufficiency, and then that gives you independence as seasteading. You guys, I've read about your goal of independence and then governance systems out there, and I'm fully in line with my eventual goal is O'Neill cylinders. So that's why I'm working with the ArcologyX. It's one step in the way. And the independence Gaia brings is through its public domain. It's meant to have a pioneer-friendly control panel, which is a simplified version for those who don't want to get in the nitty-gritty. It is a black box, which ties in that, and it's also open box. So there will be a control panel that lets you access every function, parameter, everything inside the system. And it's designed to be system agnostic. All the module sees is the input and output, the goal set, and it tries to play with that. So it's applicable to bioreactors, environmental systems, greenhouses, anywhere you need to maintain homeostasis. And these inputs are scalable. So you're not limited to a single, like only 16 sensors here and 16, it's whatever. And so that's scalable. And yep, next slide, please. And the accessible engineering is kind of the crux of the whole idea behind ArcologyX. And it's meant to, at the bottom, you have the open designs where you can see everything. Everything's going to be documented, modular, scalable, and kept as simple as possible. Because the more parts that move, the more things it can break. If you can read the docs, if you know everything about it, you can fix it. If it's modular and scalable, you can fill space or whatever, as Stuart said, and or in my case, expand to your input set, and that makes it more easier to repair, manufacture, makes it affordable, and it allows for teaching all key areas of design to new people because you have all the documentation open. That fosters a DIY community because it encourages DIY, and then you can copy, and we encourage that. Like one of the things long term was we were talking about what was the term? Manufacturing cells to let people manufacture things themselves remotely. Like we provide the plans and everything, and you just take the plans and you can set up, and away you go. So we're trying to provide self-sufficiency through the accessible engineering. Because like when I was a kid, I grew up on a farm, and I had firsthand experience with machines that were old and you could work on, and the machines that were new and they were planned obsolescence, which was a nightmare. You'd be out in the field at 3 in the morning and you need to get this thing working, and you can't because the part's proprietary. You can't manufacture it in the workshop at home. So that's kind of the whole idea. If you can make it at home, fix it, do all that, it gives you a lot more independence. Next slide, please. And so ArcologyX provides independence through the self-sufficiency, with each of us bringing our subsystems to, we've been kind of treating it like a beetle, with each of our systems being a different biological subsystem. Stuart has endoskeleton, Frank has the fascia, connective tissue. I'm not familiar with that word, but and then I got the neuroendocrine system. Colin has the guts. I put lungs in there. That was due to the permacycler. I'll have to take that out in the future, and Michaela has the meta immune system because she's not working on the physical subsystem of like us. It's more like the context that arcology operates in. And so that's it.
We have to apologize. We've had a formatting issue with Briar's slides, so I just transitioning between one and another system by which we can present.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela, and I am also based out of Altoona, Pennsylvania with Colin. So I came into this project a little later than the other guys, but my position within ArcX is more of like an oversight position. So it would be currently something like a project manager, in that I keep the organization on track and ensure that we're going to be hitting milestones appropriately. In the future, we have academic goals where some of the research each member has conducted would be edited into papers, which with me as like the main editor, because I have extensive backgrounds in scientific writing. But all in all, I just keep track of the interactions between all of the ArcX members and control the large web that connects us all to ensure that the organization is going to move forward and create something wonderful. So if you want to hit the next slide. So this is just the structure of the co-op of ArcX that we hope to use in the future as we're on the verge of incorporating. So if you see at the top, it's Frank, Briar, Colin, and Stuart, who act as the subject matter experts as well as subcontractors who will sell their products to ArcX to bring in every component needed to make a fully functioning arcology. To our knowledge, no other organization has been able to identify or address with experience the specific needs for a successful arcology, which is what makes our organization a little bit different from other ones. We see the specific needs, and each different member is going to be able to bring them to the table. And then as you see on the right side, we also hope to get some outside funding through grants to help promote both the research and the actual technologically building part of ArcX. And all of this will coincide with a successful product for consumers and clients. You want to hit the next slide real quick. So just in the future, we have some academic intentions within ArcX as well that I'll discuss further. We hope not only to publish the unique research each member has been conducting toward building a successful arcology, but we also hope to start an ecology space journal, as there are no academic journals that currently provide that specific need. And then I have here on the right some of the organizations that we hope will fund our co-op in the future. And then finally, if you want to hit the last slide here, I've been working as a pseudo social media manager in the meantime before we, as we're building up. So these are some of the pages and accounts that we have that we would love for you to give us a like or a follow or subscribe and follow our progress. And hopefully, like Stuart said, by the summer, we'll have something up and running. And so now I will open up the floor to any questions that anyone has for any of us.
Thanks, Michaela. Yeah, Q&A, please. Don't all jump at once.
Do any of you have anything that people can come and see for themselves if they happen to be passing through?
I personally have some of my commercial bioreactors on my mining sites. They're hard to get to. I didn't actually share any of those, but I'm actively, I filed for patents years ago on them and got some patents. And but more importantly, we're constructing them. Rare earth elements, acid mine drainage remediation, methane digestion. It's all based off of Winogradsky principles of self-organization. So we're still in the process of pulling all the individual pieces together. But Stuart, then this coming summer, will end up getting kind of like the stripped down, the cheap but might not last as long version of one of my reactors for their waste treatment system. And then once he gets that going on, then with his shop, now that I've got my shop here in Altoona, Pennsylvania, we're hoping to be able to then also replicate what he's doing and then being able to cross-pollinate, so to speak, and actually even Frank up in Quebec there. So we're hoping to have 3 different nodes of production. And of course, I've got one of my boys, one of my best friends who works in the cannabis industry out in Portland, very close to Pat there in Seattle. So that might be another hub, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, as well. One of my other co-workers is down there. So we're kind of hoping to sort of like popcorn here, a couple different positions, but this coming summer we should have the main components, everyone that we've spoken about today, in Montana. That would be for our MVP.
Yeah, if you come,
great question.
Come to Livingston, especially if you want to work. I'll put you to work. Come here. It's open. Just some local people decided they were interested in this project and decided to help out. So that's great. We're currently working in the basement of a school that's just a half a block from me. It's a private school. But yeah, I'd be happy to show you around if you just want to take a tour of what we're doing, and I can show you everything that we have. But if you want to work, that'd be great. Come and work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little brisk out there right now, but maybe in, the summer, I might just drop in and take a look around. I'm planning on shooting a bit of a documentary series on the subject, and I think it would fit in quite nicely.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
But we did just come across what's called the Arcology Institute as well. Somebody just gave me that link, and that was new to me. I haven't even had a chance to take a look at them. I think they're also in Washington. I think they were in Seattle as well. So there's a big hub there, and we're hoping to have an introduction to them. But we're still working independently because you gotta keep your head down and just go ahead and build, because it's easy to talk about it. It's a lot harder to put your money where your mouth is and actually build something. So that's why I'm so excited to be working with this team. Everybody actually has something, a thing, a real thing that we're all bringing, experience, and products. Yeah. I mean, just, right there, I got my shop now, so I don't have any of my stuff down here anymore, but, just different components that all work as seamlessly together as possible. And then, of course, doing the primary investigation and writing actual hard science journals, peer-reviewed, and moving that whole science and technology forward. At the same time as approaching, try to build some Airbnbs. There's one of the things that Stuart's vision is really pushed here is cost. And the speed at which these things, these systems, whether it's got all the components or not, but at least, if you've got some, get some shelter from the storm, you can start from there. And his componentry then is, for volume and surface area, is very inexpensive. I don't like using the word cheap because it's well designed, but it's not supposed to be expensive, and it's supposed to be available to pretty much everybody. And then you can just knock those components together. So it's,
Yeah,
you don't
that's
have
a
to be building houses level to
that's
do
a very
this.
it's a very important part of accessible engineering, because accessible also refers to like normal people can buy it, right? This isn't a building for rich people, it's a building for people, just people. You know, I saw there was another question in the chat that came up about bamboo
Oh,
from
That
Gabriel.
was me. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are a couple of sources of bamboo in the US. One of the reasons I chose bamboo is because you can grow it. So like on Mars, like the first thing you do is plant your bamboo, and so then you can add more buildings in 3 or 4 years. The other place to source it is from South America. There's a supplier there, but they will only ship you a whole container. So it is a little bit difficult to source in the US.
yeah.
I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. There's a strain developed in India that's solid core. It's fantastic for this stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
How solid of a core? Because one of the components, because we still have to be able to, like, kind of like if you ever make a didgeridoo out of bamboo, you got to knock out all the pith from the inside.
Right.
Because I'm a didge player and teacher.
Oh,
So
nice.
depending on how, got all sorts of hobbies. Depending on how solid core that is, that could be good, could be bad. But thank you, thank you for the link. Yeah, we'll check into that. That's really cool. I didn't know about that.
Great. Yeah.
So what's sort of the timeline? Obviously, you're targeting the summer in Montana for having some demonstration there. So what happens next after that?
Well, our plan is then to once we get an actual physical structure in place, and we can start adding the arcology features to, like Colin's wetland stuff. Then we feel like, okay, now we can start going for funding and get funding to actually, ramp up our design and our production as well. So, but we have our head, I mean, we're just focused now on getting everything done to get that first building done. So we don't have firm plans about exactly how we're going to do that. We have ideas, but that's the general strategy.
If any of you is interested into getting a geoponics setup started, I could send you some of the files. They're not 100%. I still have to work with the instructions before I can do a proper release. But if you want to do some QC little plant pots for the office, I could work something out, and it can be done at any scale. Doesn't have to be implemented into a full building.
Yeah, so Frank sent me the files, and so I printed them on my 3D printer. I printed a couple of them out. So
very cool.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I could start a print farm once we get a machine that will be reliable enough for reducing maintenance time as much as possible. Then we scale up from this point on, and then we put that into a van and we ship it to Montana or wherever else.
A quick question then for Stuart. Stuart, what do you think then the average range of cost is going to be? Because that's something that's always floating in the back of everybody's heads. Because accessible, yes, inexpensive. Do you have a feeling on that range? We talked a little bit about it before, but now that you're further into your production, I was wondering, if you've got a, within $5,000 kind of
Yeah. So
range.
I mean, the cost for the materials for the building that we're working on now, these are and low volume quantities and all is going to be between 10 and 20,000. And so it'll be a very inexpensive building. Our target for buildings is to be at 20% of the cost of normal construction. And so we'll keep working on reducing the cost, but that's a very important part of making it accessible. Another vision is that we want to be able to build these in anywhere in the world, so people have an option for living, especially if the climate goes south, like it's a distinct possibility it will. It's going to get too hot or in places, and people are too dry, and people are not going to be able to live the way they have been living. If they have a closed ecosystem, then they will be able to not die, basically. That's a big motivation for me personally.
Yeah, save ourselves.
Yeah.
ADUs then, California, this is a big thing. So my sister lives in a pretty bougie area. I think what's his name? Steph Curry was like her neighbor for a while. And my sister's doing okay. But ADUs are a big thing out there, and they love the idea of Airstreams. And just having a little extra space for somebody. And this is something then that those ADUs are going. They cost as much as more than homes do here in Pennsylvania for an ADU. Which is somebody's office. Whatever, they've got the money, they can do whatever they want with it. But this then makes that much more accessible, and we're trying to see if we can then, for the permitting wise, keep these structures within that whatever that framework is, to be able to, because if we can sell it in California, just like the auto market follows California. California sets the tone. It's the 5th largest economy on the planet. And if we can get ourselves set and licensed with engineering stamps and whatnot in California, then it's game on. If we, because you're kind of going like, this is the most strict. We already hit that number. We can build them anywhere on the planet and not have to worry about our permitting. So that's some of the guideposts that we've set for ourselves to get to that level. But that's a market as well. That would be certainly useful, because my goodness, homelessness everywhere is just going to keep getting worse, because we're not building more homes. So that was one of the things why I really like what Stuart's doing, because he gives us that framework. I have to have a house to put something into. Working with Pete Abrams there, he's got his yurt, and he's looking at some of the technologies that I'm working with as well. He's kind of like a coworker of mine. Just developing those little things, but you need a roof over your head first before you can think about putting in a bathroom, and then where that vents to, so to speak. So yeah, there's some steps, but so far I've been really impressed with what Stuart and everybody else in the group has pulled together. That's why it gets me so excited. And we meet every single Thursday too, by the way, guys. And one of our components, or one of the main things, is that we're all individually licensed as subject matter experts, and we're still working some things out. But if there are any of these things that you see that you would like this a specific component, you don't necessarily have to go and approach ArcologyX as a group. We're all independent contractors working towards this the greater picture of all these components combined. You kind of like I was telling Michaela about Captain Planet the other day. She'd never heard of Captain Planet, and with all the different rings and whatnot. But just our powers combined, so to speak. So that's if somebody has other components that we are missing, it's a big tent, I should say. It's a big arcology.
Yeah,
we
that's
got
a good
a lot
idea.
of room
Right
for
there.
a lot of people. And if you're bringing something to the table, something that you can offer that you see that we're missing, please let us know. Because there's only 5 of us. So, well, there's the 5 of us that you see today. Stuart's got other individuals, and of course, I've been talking to Peter and Patrick here for a while. So it's kind of a smallish group here, but we certainly welcome anything that your 2 cents. Send it along. It's okay.
Okay, so here's my 2 cents. I got to get
Yeah.
Jet out here in a second. I'm living in the yurt, but I'm also living in a 32-foot Pace Arrow motorhome built in 1988, and
Okay.
it is perfect. I mean, it's got a bedroom, it's got a bathroom, it's got a kitchen, it's got a dining room, it's got a living room, and it's got a motor that drives. I don't need the motor that drives, but I've been working with this shape of an elongated hexagonal bipyramid prism. Okay, so basically a hexagon with bipyramids truncated, and they stack really nicely. And to be able to fit all those components that I just mentioned into one of those and then create the geometry that instead of it being linear, it's circular. This can also be spiral, but that's the sort of stuff that I've been doing and working on. I look forward, I'm hopefully giving a presentation in March.
Great.
But I've got a jet. Thank you guys so much for everybody for this presentation, and look forward to maybe meeting up on the email or something.
Sounds good, Pete.
Great.
Yeah, we'll be in
Thanks
touch.
a lot.
Brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining.
Peace. Thanks.
Yes, we've reached the end of our scheduled time. So unless there are any burning questions, feel free to ask if you have any burning questions. And if not, we can wrap up and wish everyone a good day.
One burning question. If you're setting your test bed, your demonstration models and things like that up in Montana, do you have a jurisdiction that allows you the flexibility that you need for everything, or are you running into zoning issues or anything like that?
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about Montana. As long as I put it outside of city limits, which is where the first one is going to go, you can pretty much do what you want. Nobody really cares.
Nice.
It's in Montana, it's fine if you kill yourself. Nobody, like there's not, you don't have to wear a helmet on when you're riding a motorcycle in Montana.
Sounds like Pennsylvania.
But that will be a big hurdle that we'll have to cross next. I'm working kind of with a local, because it's a small town, so I'm kind of involved in local politics as well. And so there's a housing committee here. And so I'm starting to work with them to get like local laws passed to enable us to build these kinds of buildings. But there will be a bunch of work to get the buildings, like Colin said, to be able to build them in California or anywhere. I'm planning to take on that work after we get funding, not before.
Right.
Okay, that's the attack vector I'll try to help you with.
Oh, that would be
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. More hands, the merrier.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Please keep an eye out on seasteading.org/events for future events and presentations. If you're interested in presenting, you can email me at info@seasteading.org. And thanks for joining us. Have a great day.